Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to Newsnight. Last night, President Trump dismissed the idea that President Zelensky was being sidelined in the talks about its future, and he said, quote, "Well, you've been there for 3 years, you should have ended it. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal." Obviously, it was Russia who started it. When you hear the President of the United States making claims like that, what do you think?
I find that the British establishment is now in a state of shock and nervousness of what has happened. But what has happened, in fact, in reality, this is a more understanding from the American side of what we are doing, why we are doing, and what should be the outcome of it. As for the particular statement on the President Zelensky, there is first an obstacle for the negotiations because he has issued an executive order to prohibit himself for the negotiations. And until he is going to remove that, all negotiations on that side seems to be illegal.
So when you say you think the US administration has more of an understanding of your position, do you think they genuinely believe that Ukraine started the war?
Well, that's a fact of life. The war has not started 3 years ago. The war has started after the coup d'etat by so-called Maidan in Kiev, which has brought nationalists to power. And this, the first decree by this nationalist was prohibition of the Russian language, with which the part of Ukrainian population disagree.
I mean, it's not a fact of life. The fact is it was Russia's military aggression in 2014.
In 2014.
With Moscow's forced annexation of Crimea.
Well, in fact, I hope that in BBC they better learn history. That was a decree on the prohibition of the Russian language. The part of Ukrainian population in the east disagree with that, and Ukrainian government has sent troops to this eastern part, which that was at the start of the conflict.
Can I ask you about something that Marco Rubio said after that meeting yesterday? The US Secretary of State said, in order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides. Will Russia compromise?
It is difficult to say. What has happened yesterday, it has had 3 outcomes. First and foremost, it was re-establishment of contacts and diplomacy with the United States, which is a precondition for everything else. Second is that they have launched a process, I will say, on Ukrainian settlement, which it is very initial phase, what to do with that. And third, that both sides has agreed that we need full-scale relationship between the United States and Russia. All 3 outcomes are incredibly important for all of that. As for the process as it is in a very initial phase right now. So it is premature to speak about concessions or kind of agreements or what kind of framework it will come.
I understand. But going on what Marco Rubio said, there has to be concessions made by all sides. I'm not asking you what concessions, I'm just asking for an insight, an indication. Is Russia prepared to compromise?
It is just funny to speak about concessions in the negotiations which did not start it yet.
What about giving back Ukraine some of its territory?
Why should we? We have liberated these territories on which Russian people are living for centuries, actually. We suggested to Ukrainians several compromises in the course of the last 10 years.
When you say, why should we give back some of Ukraine's territory, the answer from Ukrainians might be because it's Ukrainian territory. That's why Russia should give it back.
I don't think so. We have suggested many times that they should just care of the human rights over there, of normal human rights like it exists in Europe, that Russians should be full-scale Russians and Russian-speaking population should be a full-scale, a normal part of Ukrainian society without prohibiting Russian language and all of that stuff.
I've interviewed some Ukrainians in the east of the country in the last 3 years. They grew up speaking Russian, they regarded Russians as their brothers, and they have had to flee because of Russian attacks on them. When
there are battles, when there are clashes over there, it is clear that the population is going to flee. And I would say that we even helped many Eastern Ukrainians to move into Russia. They did. We have right now about 6 million of refugees. And right now they are going back in Mariupol. If I'm not mistaken, there are hundreds of thousands of those who has come back because Mariupol has been is under restoration right now.
How does Moscow view the prospect of tens of thousands of European and non-European troops along the front line?
Our attitude will be negative to it. I don't think that it is. It will not be part of the deal, because if Europeans are going to install certain contingents of the Ukrainian soil, it means that they're going to construct bases and infrastructure, which is nothing, which does not deviate from NATO being on the territory of Ukraine.
But President Trump said last night
Britain.
he was fine with troops from other countries being positioned in Ukraine.
I don't believe that they did not discuss. They did discuss it in the course of the session of Riyadh, because for instance, London's concept of boots on the land changes every day.
I'm just giving you the quote from President Trump. The word he used was, "He's fine. He's fine with troops from other
countries." He might be fine, but I can assure you that we will disagree and we will not accept presence of military contingents from other countries of Europe who are members of NATO on the soil of Ukraine.
Without that, of course, Russia could come back to Ukraine.
No. What we are looking for, it is not a temporary ceasefire, it is not a truce, it is overall settlement. Overall settlement that should include Ukraine, countries in Europe, United States, and all the others. And otherwise, of course, we are not going to accept British troops on the Ukrainian soil.
But if Ukrainians want British troops on Ukrainian soil, it's up to them, isn't it?
It will be a sort of a treaty or a deal or a negotiated settlement. And every element of this, every presence during which stems from a treaty or an accord, it should be agreed by both sides.
Could one of Russia's demands be that President Zelensky stands down as a condition of peace and elections are held in Ukraine?
None of our leaders has said that so far, but we believe that since his legitimacy has come to an end May last year, he should have elections, since we do not see how we can negotiate with him something. Because if he will put his signature under any kind of agreement, and tomorrow he will not be elected as the president, so this piece of paper will have not much of value. But we can go into negotiations with him if there is no other way.
But he is the president. He was democratically elected. You know there's martial law in Ukraine because Russia launched its full-scale invasion. That's why elections are on hold.
I think it is a big demand also from the Americans that Ukrainian population should express its will, who should be the leader of Ukraine. And I'm not sure it will be Zelensky.
Does Russia accept that however this war ends, whatever is agreed about territory, Ukraine will remain a sovereign and independent state?
I think the answer is positive to your question. We understand that Ukraine, and we never denied that Ukraine should exist. Of course, we have very many contradictions right now with Ukraine, but it is, well, we will see what will be the outcome, but we value and we respect very much Ukrainian people and population. The problem is the government.
If you value and respect Ukrainian people, why have you killed so many of them?
Because of regime which is now in power right now. It has ideology which is absolutely anti-Russian, and it is very nationalistic, and it is between nationalism and fascism. The line is very thin.
It doesn't make sense. If you've got a problem with President Zelensky, why would you kill innocent Ukrainians?
President Zelensky has come to power and got a support from all Ukrainians as a president of peace. He said that he will make, while being elected, he has said he will make a peace with Russia very quickly. But then it appeared that he started a war, and he is now leading the war very seriously.
He didn't start a war.
Good to hear from you. I just explained how it has started, and you tried to say that.
Why is that funny?
Because it is like you listen, but you do not hear. This is what has happened before with the Americans. And in Riyadh, it is for the first time we have noticed that they are not simply saying that this is Russian propaganda and disinformation. They have listened and they hear what we say. And from you, it is all the same.
So they listen, and if somebody agrees with you, that means they've listened and heard.
They heard, yes, they heard and they understand what we are saying.
I remember you telling my colleague on Newsnight in January 2022 that the Russian troops in Belarus would not be going into Ukraine, they'd be going back to Russia. And of course, weeks later, Russia launched its full-scale invasion. Do you think people should believe you?
Victoria, I have answered this question very many times after 22 and all of that stuff. Every interviewer tried to ask me it. I have said at that time what I have known at that time. That is all.
Will Russia pay for the reconstruction of Ukraine?
I'm sure that we are paying right now and quite a lot for reconstruction of parts that we have liberated.
46,000 Ukrainian soldiers, and the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said 12,500 civilians had been killed. And again, I want to ask you, Russia bombed a theatre in Mariupol, pizza restaurant, a shopping mall in Kremenchuk, a children's hospital in Kyiv. Civilian targets.
No, these are not civilian targets. The pizza that you have mentioned has been attached to the hotel, which was full of soldiers, officers, especially from the NATO countries, and all of that stuff. It is just one example. This is sufficient. We do not target civilians. We are targeting only Ukrainian military infrastructure, including into energy.
So there were soldiers in the children's hospital, in the shopping mall?
No, of course it is. Everybody is saying that the church was near here, and it is usual stuff which is being invented after a certain attacks.
Okay, it's not invented. Our Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen, is in Sumy right now, and he has seen a high-rise block of flats where families live. And he said there's a great big hole in the side of it, 3 stories high, and people were killed there. They're not soldiers.
Victoria, if you are aware and interviewed some people, the Donetsk has been shelled during 9 years. 9 years of everyday shelling, Donetsk itself. And even generation of people, a new generation of people has grown up under shells. And there are lots of buildings demolished. I would very much advise to you to go to Donetsk and to see its site and to listen to what people are saying.
President Zelensky said after yesterday's Saudi meeting that Russia is run by pathological liars. It's something the now US Secretary of State Marco Rubio tweeted a few weeks after you launched the full-scale invasion. This was back in March 2022 when Marco Rubio was a senator. He wrote this: "Many in the West still don't understand that Putin is an expert liar." Are President Zelensky and Marco Rubio right?
Actually, if you want to insult our leader, then we do not have much to talk with you about it. I have heard a lot of...
I'm quoting other people I haven't insulted.
Yes, you may quote also your Minister Lamy, who is trying to, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lamy, who is trying to insult our leaders and our country very many times in the recent weeks and months when he has come to power. I don't think that we will be interested, in fact, to talk or to think that London can play any role in this.
Any role in what, sorry?
In that settlement or the processes that are going on.
And to come back to what Marco Rubio said in 2022 and what President Zelensky said yesterday, is President Putin a liar? Can Donald Trump trust him?
We do not take any position on President Zelensky's statements. He do it every time and everywhere. He's the biggest liar in the world, and as has been claimed by the President Trump as well. Of course, he is only seeking for money and all of that. He doesn't care about Ukrainians themselves if he has introduced them into such a battle. So question is to him.
Can President Trump trust President Putin?
Marco Rubio has, during these talks and negotiations, they were very polite, I will say, very diplomatic, and of course, issues are very serious. I have also, I will tell you about the telephone conversations initially. It's a conversation between two states figures, two ministers, real diplomatic, and what has happened in Riyadh, that was not bad, it was good. And it was a mutual understanding. And as I understand also from the statements by President Putin, he never comes to the expressions like you have mentioned in your script over there. He's a very polite personality, very serious personality. He has a strategic vision, and probably here he is polite to President Trump. And I understand he respects President Trump for his courage.
And to come back finally to the question that I've asked a couple of times, can President Trump trust President Putin?
Well, they do have trust already in between them, and they stated they talked. Of course, it was a long telephone conversation. How this telephone conversation could have happened without mutual trust?
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to Newsnight.
Okay. Thank you.